Hi, I'm Brittney Ashley, your host of Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, your guide through this transformative journey in both business and life. This is your place crafted for dreamers, doers, or anyone who has been told they can't. Get ready as we challenge those narratives together. You're tuning in live to the United Public Radio Network, airing on 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. We are streaming on all the popular platforms every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Join me for a candid and thought-provoking conversation celebrating your unique journey because you are worth it. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today. We are Breaking Norms, Building Dreams, and I'm your host, Brittney Ashley. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Get ready to escape the routines and join us as the next hour as we break norms and build dreams with Nadine. I'm so excited to have Nadine here. And if you don't know from the last show, Nadine's actually going to be with us. We're going to have her come in at least once a month, give or take. We'll figure out different topics on motherhood, parenthood, all the fun stuff. Before we dive in to introduce Nadine a little bit more, let me just do a little bio on her. So Nadine is an international certified coach and is dedicated to helping moms reclaim their mojo. And pause, or let's pause that for a second. Let's rewind for a second. I'm too excited to introduce you, and my brain went segues. Welcome to ADHD Brain. Let's rewind. Okay. Nadine is an international certified coach and is dedicated to helping ambitious moms reclaim their mojo, which is very important, and pursue their aspiring minds through personal one-on-one coaching experiencing. Nadine empowers moms to take baby steps and giant leaps to ensure they find the pace that works for them, which is very important. As a result, moms experience a sense of energy, confidence, and empowerment that really helps them pursue their desires. Beyond her role as guiding moms into their world of ease, Nadine also likes to take moments for herself, whether it is reading a good book or spending family time in Vancouver, Canada. I'm so excited to have you, Nadine.
Wee! Thank you so much for having me, Brittney. This is an honor. Oh my gosh, I'm super excited for today, our first time together on the radio. I know we've collaborated a few times in different ways before, but this is really taking it to a new level, and I'm so honored to be on the show with you. And thank you to everyone who's taking a moment out of their probably super busy lives to tune in and just see what we're coming up with today. I know we've got some good stories lined up for for the next hour or so, and some really great tips on balancing busy life as a parent and working professional or entrepreneur.
Yes. So our general topic today is balancing acts, which is 5 tips for balancing life for ambitious parents. We'll dig into that a little bit deeper. But since, I kind of messed up a little bit of the introduction there, Nadine, take it away and do a better introduction. I apologize. My brain was like, okay, I need to do this and make sure I say this. Anyways.
You got it all. You got it all. It's all in there. There's not much to add. It's all about, it was like supporting ambitious and motivated moms to really feel like there's a bit something missing. It's like what you probably know as well as a busy mom and entrepreneur. It's like this is something. There has to be more to all of this, and that's when you started your business. That's when I come in and support moms, or actually parents. I do have clients as well who are not moms, and really explore what that could look like. Someone might be like, oh, you know what? I didn't like my career 10 years ago. Never mind now. So let's change that. Or if someone's been thinking about finally writing that book or starting their own podcast or changing careers, starting their own business, like, hey, sign me up. I'm going to help you really feel make that happen, make the time in your life to do this happen, the energy that you might need to see this through to the end, to the successful period. And Oh gosh, it's lighting me up talking about it even. But it's like seeing parents going through that and putting their own well-being on their massive never-ending to-do lists. Right? It's like it's not even there. It's like everyone else. We're taking care of everyone else 24/7. So this is like, hey, it's time for me. Hello, I'm over here. Like, let's do it and get something done. That's where I come in. And yeah.
I think that's probably why we connected so much. There's so much synergy there. Like Nadine mentioned that we've done quite a few different kind of collaborations, and I was super excited to bring Nadine on the show because there's just so many different topics that we've talked about in the past and we want to shed light on and like really challenge the narratives and break down some of the norms of what's kind of expected on parents, moms, and so forth. So we have a lineup of so many different topics. Really excited to just dive into this one specifically. But I'm so curious to let everybody know what started your journey to be a coach.
Oh gosh, it's been a long one, but it's so I'm living in Canada, like you mentioned earlier. It's actually my 6th country altogether. So I've lived in lots of different places around the world, and I've always kind of coached mainly other ambitious women in the workplace, and that kind of really morphed into coaching global change makers, people who want better for their communities wherever they are. And then through my own motherhood journey, and let's face it, COVID as well, over the last few years, I've really become more focused and tuned in onto how much support parents actually need and how relentless it can be. And so I've really pivoted and concentrated more onto is like, this is my sweet zone. This is where I get energized. And I know parents get a lot out of that as well. And I'm really focusing now on supporting ambitious moms to make their own dreams come true as well.
I love that. I know some of the listeners are new to the show, or if you haven't heard any of the past ones, I'll just kind of reiterate. I'm also a certified business coach,
Yeah.
connecting with other coaches as well, because I think coaches need coaches. Everybody needs a coach. Let's be honest. Push you forward to your goals. But yeah, that's kind of like my passion too. Why I started Creative Dynamics was to help, because I was a mom. I'm a mom of 2 little ones. But when I became a mom, I just felt so lost of that on like, okay, now I have to go off maternity leave and go to a 9-to-5 that I feel not in alignment with. I'm absolutely struggling. It's a very toxic place. And I just could not even bring myself to even apply. I remember having like triggers of like, even when I would apply and have like interviews and they'd be like, do you want to have this job? I'm like, no, I don't. But then the piece of my brain's like, I need to have a job to pay the bills, but it didn't feel like in alignment to me. So having this journey to even just start a business to help other moms work from home is such a passion of mine. And why I jumped in full force too of becoming a coach. It's also seeing those moments in people that are like, you know what, I am enough to take lead and go forward in other, like what I'm passionate about.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have a corporate background as a hiring manager, team leader. I've had like led a business women's network internally of those companies. But the things that actually made me really light up, the ones that I was really looking forward to day in, day out in my corporate job, were the ones that weren't on my actual to-do list, on my actual job description. So when that job ended and I actually went here to Canada, I was looking around. It's like, so what are those jobs where I can do all those things that actually light me up? And I couldn't find any, not even like where half of that was on the job description. And with a coach at the time, I really, hi Helen, by the way, if you're if you're tuning in, I really like dug down is like, so what is it? And then it's like, boom, that's it. It's like, okay, I'm going through it. It's super scary doing your own thing, especially if you don't have that background or that mindset necessarily. But I made it work, and I still, yes, like you said, everyone needs a coach. I still have a coach. Or two, and you know, we're making it happen. This is what we want. This is important to us, 100%. Right?
And I think it's important too in 9-to-5 jobs for employers to think about having coaches for those in the work environment, for parents, moms, and just those who are struggling, because it's hard when you're kind of like engulfed in, I don't want to say the system, but in a way you kind of are, because you're following the systems to build their business and so forth. You kind of forget what you're passionate about. And I think employers will even see like a change in their employees of being like, you know what, I'm so passionate about this again. I can do X, Y, and Z again. I can, all of these things. Like looking back when I did have 9-to-5, I think I would have been like, well, let's be honest. I probably been like, oh, I should have been an entrepreneur. I would have realized that my brain should have went that way. But I think it would have been a lot more impactful, or will be impactful, to see that kind of movement a little bit more in 9-to-5s. I think as entrepreneurs, we're just kind of, we know to go find a coach. I don't know. I feel like it's just a little bit more organic of, yeah, I need a coach.
Yeah, I do see a trend. So the first time I got in, kind of got a touch point to a coach was actually because my workplace had internal coaches. So that's how I got exposed to coaches, and I'm still coaching people in the workplace. So that's still going on as well. So there's definitely a trend. And if anyone's looking for a 9-to-5 or a corporate job or any of these things, I would definitely ask as part of the interview process as well. It's like, what does your internal development options look like? Do you offer training? Do you have coaches? Like, some employers actually have this as part of their job description. They know it's worth the investment of having a coach internally, and they're advertising that because they know it's such a draw point, right? To keep their employees happy.
Yes.
So yeah, here's to coaching.
Let's dive in.
Yes, let's.
As we mentioned, our focus today is balancing acts, and we're going to kind of go through 5 different tips of balancing life for ambitious parents. Number 1, where shall we start? Self-care and well-being. I think that's
let's do that. Yeah,
it's a big one in itself.
I know that could be its own show.
Yeah, it could.
For sure. So I mean, it's definitely crucial to have self-care and well-being. And I think sometimes self-care has a bit of a negative annotations, like, oh, that again, and what is it? You know, it's like, or you just need to take a bath or whatever, and then that's you know, you feel better afterwards. But it's essentially essential hygiene. It's not necessarily well-being or self-care. So it's like a bit more deeper running. And I find, especially with moms, it can also have this, self-care can be linked to being selfish, which is, there's so much to unpack just in that as well. But it's basically essential. Rest is essential. You charging your batteries is essential. You can't run on an empty battery. So it's like, fill up your cups for the sake of doing it for yourself. If you do need an additional reminder or an additional, reason, then do it for your family, for your job. You can't do your best work if you're not rested, if you're not well. It's just not possible.
100%. And actually, I was just having a chat with a client right before this call, and I was just saying, I went to bed at 8:00 last night because I was just, my whole body was just kind of like, I guess it's also the fear of missing out, and I don't know what I'd miss out at Sunday evening, but I was like, I have to watch the movie. But I'm halfway falling asleep, where I was just like, you know what, there's no point. I need to take a step back and go to bed and rest. And I feel so much more rested today. Right. So it's listening to those listen to your body at the end of the day, what it's trying to tell you when you're feeling really stressed or feeling burnt out or so forth. What are the ways to kind of take a step back to make sure you take care of you?
Absolutely. And so often it's it's like, oh, I should be doing this. It's like we're putting the pressure on ourselves, or I need to be doing the dishes again, and I should be doing this, and this is what it should look like, and daddy dance. It was just constantly pushing what you just said. It's the pushing, pushing, pushing.
Yes.
And kind of really relate this to, oh, it's not worth it if it's difficult. But really, it's like, what if you just go to bed at 8 o'clock, right?
Yes.
It can also be easy, and no one's actually going to say anything about it. So what? You went to bed at 8. Great on you. I wish I did this. And one of the things around self-care or well-being, actually, I find oftentimes starts with a mindset as well. It's like that we're worth it. We're enough to look out for ourselves. It's not always like looking out for everyone else's well-being 24/7. It's granting ourselves the permission to look out for ourselves and be like, switch off that negative self-talk around it and switch on the self-compassion. I'm worth going to bed at 8 o'clock. Yes, I can. So what?
And it's hard too, because sometimes you feel like just say, I actually cleaned the whole house yesterday, so I didn't have dirty dishes in the sink for once. But usually, you would have like maybe dirty dishes in the sink, and you're super tired.
Yeah.
And you know what? I should actually really go and deal with those dishes. So it's just kind of like, I guess, like a fine line. Like if you're really pushing yourself to go do something, when the good part of you, the other big part is just like, you need to go to bed. You need to rest. What is it to just leave the dishes for one night, to kind of segue, to go have that extra rest, because your body's telling you that you need to take that moment to step back for.
Yeah. Because then also you might be faster the next day around when you have a clear, focused mind, and you can actually do that. Well, maybe also listening to a podcast and concentrate on that as well. So you can do those things, or, something else, but you might actually be more efficient if you're prioritizing the sleep first, for instance. And it's so different for everyone. So that's not really like one thing to say. It's like, oh yeah, do this for self-care, because sometimes those things are it's different and they resonate differently. So for me, an essential self-care thing would be that I read romance novels. I just have to read them. It's like, be in a different world, just me, the quiet time, and I need to dive into this. If I don't do this for a few days, I can feel it. So that's something for me. For others, that would be torture. It's like, I don't like books, or
me,
or or just like falling asleep after half a page because you're just like so exhausted. That's just not that. Then maybe it's podcasts, maybe it's audiobooks, maybe it's your favorite show on Netflix, whatever it is. There's always something different, or hanging out with your friends. The essential things, like, what are one or two things that you would make the biggest difference? So it's not doing everything, but what's like one or two things that would actually make a difference? Is it getting up a tiny bit earlier in the morning and starting your day in a quiet home with a cup of coffee, just by yourself, instead of waking up into mayhem? Or what is that for you? What would make a difference? It doesn't have to be huge.
Do you have any tips for anyone who is struggling as a parent or mom, trying to find like what is like considered self-care? Because I feel like it's taken me a long time to figure that out, for sure. And I feel like you mentioned guilty. Like even when I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, I feel guilty about that. So maybe I won't roll it that much into my week or month. So how would you recommend others to kind of?
It's there's also this thing about kind of getting lost during motherhood, or getting like losing your identity as a mother. It's like, what do you like now? Do you still like that thing that you liked before you became a mom, right? Is that still something that lights you up? And so it's a bit of trial and error, to be honest, and being okay with the outcome, right? If you liked one thing, I don't know, if you liked, what is it? I don't know, hiking before you went became a mom, and now you don't like it anymore. That's also okay. So it's the self-compassion around it. It's like trying things out and doing that. And self-care could be a whole lot of different things. It could also mean, for instance, meeting up with your best friend once a month or once a week.
I love that.
Right? That is an act of self-care. So it's not necessarily what you hear prescribed as like in a list, in a drop down. It's not even like, oh, here's a list of 10 things that you can do. It's always different for everyone. And it takes a bit of trial and error and really like noticing, hey, what could you, paying attention on the days, like what would you actually really like to do right now? What's that thing? And trying it out. I'm actually curious, what is that thing that you like for self-care and the guilty thing?
I was actually going to bring back to the whole book thing. And the reason why I don't like reading books, I think I've mentioned this previously multiple times, is that I have dyslexia, and so I get very angry. I'm such a slow reader, and I swear I self-diagnosed with ADHD. And so if I don't get to a certain point fast enough in the book, I start to get angry.
Yeah.
Why is this not going fast enough for me? This is just not like, I can't describe it. I get anxious and I never finish it because I get bored really fast. But what I do love to do is listen to podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. And then also to hang out with friends. Like I love my close friends are like family to me. And as Brandon just said, he likes to, nice to sit and listen to music and watch videos, calls with their best friends. That would be one of me.
Yeah.
Claiming it. But yeah, no, I really love friends that are like family that just kind of, that are really there for you. And so I want to take those moments and not talk to kids 24/7. It's nice to have like those conversations and not watch like Paw Patrol or whichever your kiddo's like obsessed with on a weekly basis. It's just nice to kind of dive back into like adulthood and like, oh yeah, that is a very interesting conversation. Let's dive into that more.
Exactly. And so it's like you make self-care do whatever, like it's supposed to take care of yourself. So that could be, it could also be, I don't know, having healthy home cooked meals every day. For instance, that if that's something that's important to you, right? So self-care, you're taking care of yourself. How are you doing that for your mind, your body, your soul? If you're a very soulful person or a spiritual person, it's like, how are you nurturing those parts of yourself? Right? Some, it could be going for a run every day because that's their energy outlets and also where they're getting the energy from, right? Or their de-stressor. So it's very, very wide, but it's, if you don't know where to start small with something that actually makes a difference. So what would that be? Just tiny steps.
And I think
steps, dipping it in, and
we might put a little pressure on ourselves, like, okay, I need self-care and well-being in my life. I'm going to go, like maybe the gym's not your thing really, but all of a sudden it's your thing because every new year, a lot of people are like, I'm going to go to the gym and do why throughout the week. And that's why a lot of those goals don't end up fully succeeding because it's not actually, like, that's not really part of our drive in a way, even though we want it to be. So with your point there, Nadine, I think we should challenge others to like sit down, no pressure, but thinking of like things that they've enjoyed doing in the past, things that they maybe think that they're going to enjoy, and just write it down and try it. And it doesn't have to be for a long period of time. If it's something that you see that sparks joy, then see how else you can monetize that a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The other tip that we have is goal setting and time management.
Yeah, talking about goals, huh? It's like New Year's resolutions and everything.
anyone listening, I do not make New Year's resolutions anymore. Do you, Nadine?
No, I've given up. I'm actually finalizing what's supposed to be a small goal setting blog post for my website, and now turned into a monster of a blog, and all in one. And I've looked into some statistics around goal setting, and it's like this tiny amount of New Year's resolutions that actually are like making it through even to the end of the year or 2 months in. It's ridiculous. And it's so there's a whole lot of thing around goal setting that's important. I've actually got some stats here. Is it okay if I just read them out around goal setting? Why it's so important to start off with? So I was like, oh, when he said, oh, let's talk about goal setting for the show, I was like, yes, I've got some stuff here that's probably like why it's really important to have goals in the first place. So people who set clear goals are 10 times more likely to achieve them just by having them. 70% of people who shared their goals, so on social media, maybe with a coach, a best friend, with a family, so 70% of people who shared their goals accomplished the goal. Setting actionable tasks to reach a goal and no regular, say, weekly progress, either with yourself, you're just in a notebook, it's like, oh yeah, I've done this, I've worked towards my goal, or this is how far I've come, or again with a coach or whatever, maybe even with your manager. So if you're noting down actionable steps and you're reviewing them every week, you achieve the goals 40% faster.
Oh, wow.
Now, that is a real good motivator to do that regularly, right? So have your goals, talk to people about it, and do regular check-ins and feedback. That's why it's important to have them in the first place.
That's true, because we both work with Lindsay. I'm like I do have ADHD, and so my brain's like da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And so if I don't sit down and map it out goal wise, or just like a high level, like I have to be like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so the next time you see me, I have not accomplished it, just wake me up a little bit.
Yeah. That tough talk.
Sometimes we all need in our lives.
Yeah, for sure. Everyone needs a coach,
Yeah.
So so goal setting and time management around it. So it's like managing goals. I think, again, there's this thing about wanting to do too much, at like doing all the things within timelines that aren't necessarily realistic enough, especially considering kids can get sick and you might not be able to work on them because you're the default parent at home. Or I don't know, last week we had our kids, yours as well as mine, home because we had a snowstorm for 2 days. Now there is a strike for public transport here in Vancouver. So
didn't hear that.
It's like teachers can't actually necessarily make it to their places of work, and gets what's so like we need to build in buffers, I think, for our goal setting. Be sure we have a challenge there, but also it needs to be realistic. So there's always a bit of a time buffer around it, which would also obviously take the pressure off us and the stress when we're setting goals. And so that really helps for goal setting, in my experience, specifically if you're a parent as well. What do you think?
No, 100%. And I think I've mentioned this before. It was actually last show with Nicole about giving ourselves grace. And I think we definitely are very hard on ourselves as parents, as moms. And we tend to forget to give ourselves grace when we are juggling everything in the mix and above. I know for me, I think I had to really, really swallow that a lot for me, because I'm very like type A perfectionist. get this down to a T because I need to do it all. It's like super
Yeah.
mom. And then I finally had the realization of like, it was when I was doing my imposter syndrome coaching of like, you know what? Let's take a step back, give yourself grace because you're doing it all. You're building a business, you're building multiple businesses, you're doing all the things, but when you're sick, like what are your non-negotiables really? So for me, when the kids are sick, they're first. The business goes back on the back burner.
Yeah.
And so having that piece of kind of like a giving yourself grace, but then also giving yourself grace to think that way. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily a horrible entrepreneur or 9-to-5 person, right? It's just it's coming to easing your mind a little bit differently on it.
Exactly. It's that self-compassion part that we talked about earlier too, and just really, yeah, you're the boss of your own business or your own person's, like you're hopefully doing or being in a position where you can just take a step back and being okay with it. It's like knowing what your non-negotiables are, like you mentioned, is very important as well. So a lot of like the clarity around it. And even if you're not and you're in a position where you are reporting to someone else and you can't, like you don't all have the strings in your you know, hand, and you're not the one who's pulling all the strings. There's ways to talk around it and also not talk around it, but it's worth like exploring like what can be done, and if how you're setting yourself up for success in those areas. Communicate that and pull it through, and eventually if you're not in a place where you can have those types of conversations and you're not supported, then start looking for places that might be a bit more suitable for that. And yes, that's probably not around the corner, so that's something to work towards. And if you know you're like, let's talk around that if you're in a situation like that, right, where the workplace just doesn't work out and it's causing you, it's like draining you of energy rather than supporting your life.
Yes. The next piece before we dive in is time management, but we're already at the 30-minute mark. So for those just tuning in, you're listening to Breaking Norms, Building Dreams. We are live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network at 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. It's already been 30 minutes. Can you believe that, Nadine? We're having so much information and talking about all the things.
Yeah.
Time management's the next big one that rolls into goal setting, really. Do you have any kind of tips for ambitious parents on time management?
Put it in the calendar. It's like all the things that are, again, coming back to the clarity bit, the things that are important to you, that are non-negotiables, put them in your calendar and block off time. So all the things where it's like, okay, I'm working on my business. Here's a birthday party. There's I don't know what else. There's the meetup with my good friends over there at the weekend, with my mom friends at the weekend. Those are the things that you put into the calendar, and they're like, if it's not there, you can push them aside. You forget about them. It's a blah, blah, blah. It's like time management is like, put them in. And again, also put in buffers. So I was talking to a mom last week who just like, oh, I'm always so drained when I have calls first thing in the morning and then again at 4:30 in the afternoon. And I was like, well, yeah, it's like you go in full on without having actually like taken time to see what other emergencies are in for your, in your schedule. Or 4:30 in the afternoon, you come out of that call and you still have action items from that call, but by then it's like 5 or 6. So like, don't get into a position where you have calls first thing in the morning or in the afternoon, if at all possible. So in that case, we actually agreed that she would have buffers in the morning and in the afternoon. So no calls after 4, no calls before 8 a.m. in the morning. She was in a position to make that happen. So it's like, that's how our calendar is set up. You just like need that. And yeah. You know what else is really important? It's like scheduling in breaks.
Yes, I'm the worst at that.
So often it's like
hands up. I am like non-go, like step, like just 120% always with non-breaks. About like I like the buffer time piece.
Yeah.
And then if anyone's thinking like, how do I use a calendar? Like you can easily use your phone. Like I use Google Calendar all the time, and I map things out. And then it has like little reminders for me, so I know when like meetings are coming up. It really like helps me stay on track. I also have like the biggest pet peeve when I book into calendars and they don't like sync to your Google Calendar. So my brain's like, I'm so busy. If you're not going to message me, that's like a meeting in the past already because it didn't sync to my calendar.
Yeah. Make it easy. Set up your, I know it's like I just want to say, talking about workflows and everything, but it's like, there's a lot of technology out there that's fairly easy to use and free to make your life a bit easier. So for instance, I have a shared calendar with my husband. I have all his work meetings. He knows when I'm in a non-negotiable meeting, or when I'm going in with coaching clients. He obviously doesn't know which client, but it's like, this is a live coaching session. You do not disturb me. I need quiet time around it. And in my office space. And then there's others where it's like, yeah, I'm working away, but it needs to be done. So that definitely helps. Also takes away from having to constantly explain what I'm doing, or what's going on. It's like, just check a calendar. I'm going out and meeting this person this afternoon, or this is going on. So yeah, calendars totally work.
There's so many other apps out there too, other than just the calendar. I know and I were looking at different technology when we were writing our shared blog last year. There's so many different technologies that can help advance a working parent to kind of just feel a little bit more organized than not. Because I know I have to be super organized. Like I already feel overwhelmed as it is on a good day. So if the day is not organized too much to how I like it, then I'm going to be even more anxious, overwhelmed.
Yeah. And with that, it's like, if it's too structured and there's no flexibility in there, that's where I mentioned the buffer times earlier as well. Because let's face it, there's always something going to come up.
Yeah.
Always an emergency on a project, or, the school calls in and it's like, hey, you need to pick up your kids now, or there's a leak somewhere and you have to drop things and do things around it. There's always something. So yeah, structure with flexibility.
And I think too, like I was going to touch on boundaries too. So I used to, as I was building this business, would be like, yeah, I can have a discover call on the weekend, even though I was responsible for 2 little ones. And like, how am I going to manage this? Why do I keep putting myself in these situations when I know my designated times? And it's to the point, yeah, you can be somewhat accommodating too. But if the person's really like shoving back on like the time frames and all that, you need to kind of put it in your brain, like let it go. Like you're building a business, or you're building or trying to map something out, and there's a reason why you have those time slots available. And obviously you're going to work with the person, but if they're just giving you such a hard time, it's also giving yourself boundary too, to say, you know what, no, let's step away, and maybe down the road we can revisit it. But right now it's just not in alignment to.
Yeah. If you're saying yes to that call on the weekend, what are you saying no to?
Exactly.
Right.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Boundaries is another big thing we can talk about at some stage. Oh,
I think that's one of our topics. I just can't remember. We've made a huge list. So I know boundaries was in there for sure. The other big piece that parents could do is building a good support system. So not just goal setting, time management, self-care, but really building a great support system. Do you have any insight on that, Nadine?
Yeah, for sure. I call it the mom village. You know, from that thing where you say, "Oh yeah, it takes a village to raise a kid." I also believe that's the case for the mom, and we need a mom village. I love to be part of people's moms villages and supporting them as their coach. And I think there's nearly like a time of like what that looked like, that support system before COVID and then after COVID, because everything, there wasn't anything available in the last few years, right? You couldn't meet in person anymore. Parent and baby times were no longer there. You couldn't meet up in daycares and schools or even parks at some stage. So it all started like changing a bit more, or you don't have your family close by either. I know here in Vancouver, it's like 50% of all people who live here were not born here, so their extended family is like all over the world, and it can be quite difficult. So building that support village is really, really important. And at some stage, I think you need to be like courageous and take the first step and say, hey, I'm looking for new friends. I can hang out with someone, or I want to hang out with someone. And that helps both for your in all aspects of your life, really. And the encouragement here is to kind of keep an open mind on what that could be like. We might just like, oh yeah, it's like have mom friends, and you might automatically think that's another parent with kids your own age. But what if it's younger kids, or there's someone with a teenager or older kids in your who you might help out with? You can tap into their wisdom, or that teenage kid might become a babysitter at some stage, right?
Yes.
If you can't if you do not have the time to hang out with parents who have kids your own age, the other parent might be in the same situation. So what if you add people to, or seek out people who do not have any kids, who are a bit more flexible, or there's a elderly neighbor down the road who doesn't have their grandchildren around and would like to hang out a bit more. Or in the workspace, oftentimes you have like mentors, or you have employee engagement groups who could really be part of your mom support village.
Yes.
Like there's so many different ways. And some of the local Facebook groups here, like I've seen a few moms are always sharing them on. It's like, hey, I'm new to the area, or I'm a new mom, or I just moved here. It's like, does anyone else want to go for a walk in the park and just hang out? And it's like, yeah, let's do that. It's
Definitely.
like cheering them on and they put themselves out there, and there's always comments like, yeah, hey, I'm new here too. Yes, let's meet up for a coffee.
There's so many Facebook groups out of there. If no one's really on Facebook. Like we have like a community Facebook just within our neighborhood. So because we have watch blocks or whatever. So it's like everybody runs to Facebook. Like, did you hear that? There's just even hiking. If that resonates with you, find like hiking Facebook groups. Look for mom Facebook groups. I'm in so many Facebook groups. I can't even count on my actual hands how many Facebook groups I'm in. So ongoing joke in the house with my husband that I have too many Facebook groups, but it's just because I wear so many different hats, or I'm just trying to find that different kind of connection, what resonates. So you don't have to be honed into one group. Think of different groups that really align with what you want to do with
absolutely
that group for support.
Actually, over here we have like those hiking groups too. Then there's like new moms walking and coffee groups. There's neighborhood groups. There is new moms want to work out groups.
Yes,
you name it. And there's a lot. Tap into that.
And I think it's also too of not being scared to ask for help. So with my first kiddo, I definitely had postpartum, which was very hard, I ended up asking a lot of help with the Queen Alexander here, and they end up putting me in I can't remember the name of it, but just kind of like a bubble of other moms who's going through a hard time, so we can share our stories and just a support system that way. So think of different places that you can ask for help and reach out, and be scared not to ask for it, because it was so hard for me to ask for help, because really it's I'm the first time mom. I want to be super mom. I want to do all these things. But in reality of it, the first time caring for a human.
Yeah. Yeah. Then reality hits and it's like, oh no. It doesn't have to be go down that road, but it definitely helps. And more often than not, I find people are very grateful when it's like, oh, thank you for asking. Right? Or it's like for putting it out there, because it takes a bit of courage to ask for help, and I put maybe a post up in a Facebook group or whatever, but it doesn't have to be. Usually the others, it's very, you get people who are who'd also want to help out because they're in the same situation. Especially early motherhood can be very lonely.
Yes.
So put your name out there, hold up your hand, say, hey, does anyone want to go for a walk or a coffee meetup?
Exactly, which kind of leads into our fourth of embracing imperfectionism, which I know I'm very type A. I'm by nature perfectionist, always striving, doing it all. And, I think it comes from letter grades back in school. I needed to always get those A's. But what do you have to share for others listening to kind of let go of the perfectionism?
Well, for one, I find it's very, very common. It's like that, oh yeah, I want to be like the perfect mom. I want to be the perfect business owner or manager or employee. And it's eventually, reality hits and you have a choice. If you don't make the choice, maybe your body will do it for you. If you're going down that route. So always check in. It's like you do not have to cook 7 meals from scratch every day of the week. You do not have to have a Halloween costume that's handmade and the best ever. Or if that's important to you, sure, but if you say yes to this, what are you saying no to? And if what you're saying no to costs you too dearly on your mental well-being, your physical well-being, then maybe it's not worth it, right? So again, also, I feel like they're all a bit connected around what are your non-negotiables? What's really important to you? What do you value in life? And go for that. If there's a bit of it brings you energy, it lifts you up. If you want to do a Halloween costume and you're working all year towards that because that's the thing your family does, oh my God, yeah, I can see how that would be something you're really excited about and you want to stay up and really get this going. But if it's not, then see usually 80% does it too, and it's better done than not at all. So yeah, it's very perfectionism, people pleasing, I think are two of the traits that I come across most often when I talk with moms. And social media isn't always your best friend there as well. It's like comparing yourself to others and the good images that everyone is posting. And real motherhood stories actually help. It's like talking through the stuff is like, it's not all rosy all the time.
Yeah. And I think we definitely we're kind of moved more in the momentum of social media more than ever. So if you look back in the day, really they hardly had television or whichever. Yeah. Now you can see all the things online. And so you kind of start to compare yourself, even just as business owners, if you're on there, you're like, look at that business owner. They're doing great, but you really don't even know what they're struggling with on a daily, weekly basis. Like last week, like we just chatted about, the kids were home since Wednesday. So Wednesday to Sunday, or home 24/7. I'm like, I'm going bananas.
Mm-hmm.
Can't wait for tomorrow to see you off to school and daycare. But like, you just never know what people are going through, because they post too what they want you to see as well. So, and some of them don't feel very confident in talking about the negatives. Some do say that not everyone's always talking about positives, but sometimes we just narrow in on those pieces and what we're really kind of taking away.
On that note, it's also like, just remind yourself that you're doing your best, right? It's like you're doing a lot. Like motherhood or parenthood, that's a full-time job. Like no one gives you training for. Let's face it. And then you're running your business, or you're going to your actual paid job, right? All that takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of organizing, coordinating, remembering, you name it. It's like, it's a lot. Cut yourself some slack. It's that self-compassion that comes back in. And also, hey, you. It's like, come on, let's celebrate a bit. It's like, these are all the things. What if you're like, oh, I didn't do this, but it's about flipping it around, saying, hey, this is all the things that I've managed to do this week, right?
Yes.
And sometimes getting out of bed and making it through the day without anyone like seriously hurting themselves can be a huge success.
Yes.
It's like, whew, tomorrow's going to be a better day. But today, actually, it's one to write off. Thank goodness we're all going to bed now.
Yeah.
It just happens. It's like, okay, great. We made it through. Whew.
Yes.
Next one.
Yes. And I think we kind of get lost sometimes in the mix when you have 1 or 2 kids, 5 kids, and just go in the motion and just in survival mode sometimes. But like we mentioned today about giving yourself grace, taking some time steps back, time blocking, boundaries, all the things in the queue will really help ambitious parents to move forward. The last piece that we wanted to chat about is mindfulness, and really mindfulness as a whole, because I think that is really big. That Terry just mentioned discipline as well as thank you. So mindfulness too plays a very important role in finding balance. What do you feel, Nadine?
It does play a big a big role. It's a bit, sometimes I feel it comes a bit across as, oh, it's this wishy-washy thing, and we're just like leaving it aside. You don't have time for those types of things. And when we're juggling all these different roles and we're really like that ambitious and getting stuff done, one of the biggest kind of complaints that I get from my clients is that it's like too stressed. There's no time for anything. It's too stressed. It's always like on. And they're easily also not like, you're losing losing a grip, or your grip on emotions. You're getting very emotional, or you're getting flared up or angry or frustrated really easily because of that. You're getting maybe not enough sleep because things are constantly going through your head. You're just on all the time, and emotional regulation isn't really a thing, but it costs you every day. It'll cost you if you're just on all the time. You can't rest. You're stressed all the time, worried, frustrated. You can't clearly think, come up with good solutions for problems you're facing, or just getting emotional, not patient with your kids, for instance, etc. So this is where mindfulness comes in. It's essentially, if you're a numbers person, I would say it'll save you quite a lot of time and energy throughout the day to get more stuff done. So that's really the investments here that I see, of being more focused, more present, being able to keep you together and getting through the day. And it's a habit that you practice. It's not something like, oh, today I'm going to be more mindful. That's a good intention for the day, but you need to practice it. And not just, yes, in the moment when you're feeling a bit more frustrated, or you kind of feel like, oh my gosh, I need to count to 10 now, whatever. That's a good way in the moment. But ideally, it doesn't come to that in the first place. So you're having intervals, short intervals throughout the day where you are practicing being a bit more mindful. So it doesn't come to that flare up, or the, those frustrations and anger, and you're practicing it to be less stressed, be calmer, peace of mind. I mean, who doesn't want a bit more peace of mind?
Yeah.
And a bit of calm in the hectic days. So examples for being mindful could be doing meditations, journaling, breathing exercises, really like practicing being present in the moment. And for those of you who say, it's like, yeah, but I don't have time for this, it doesn't have to be long. It could be a 1 or 2 minute thing in the morning. If you do get up and have your coffee earlier in the morning to start off your day calmly, it's like, what if you journal down a few intentions for the day, or a positive affirmation? This is how I want to be today. Or at the end of the day, before you go and rest, as part of your sleep routine in the evening, why don't you just even think, you don't even have to write it down, but think for yourself 3 things that you're grateful for that day, right? We're taking a deep breath in. It's like 1 minute, 3 deep breaths in and out makes a difference. Especially if you're also like going between work mode and then family or kids mode. There's so many different things, but it's really an investment in basically getting all the stuff done that you naturally want as an ambitious parent.
Yes.
That's a lot of points. What do you think about that?
No, I love it. Thank you, Nadine. And Terry just mentioned, I love that. I love this. We also have to be able to constantly pivot.
Yeah.
Very true. I feel that because we're always constantly on the go, 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 being mindful of all the things that we just chatted about today, like time management, goals, boundaries. I also really think like mindfulness does play a key role as well. As you're kind of speaking to your kiddos of like, okay, why am I yelling at them? What are things I can do so it's not more chaotic? It just keeps rising and rising. What are things I can do to maybe not also be that trigger as well? Because I feel like we're just triggers sometimes together, and then just fire explodes.
Exactly. It's like it's like if they're, emotional about something, or frustrated about something, you will hardly ever calm their emotions with your high emotions as well. You need to be calm first in order for that to help them be a bit calmer and get their emotions regulated. So you need a lead with that as a parent for sure.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Do you?
Oh, sorry.
No, like which of those mindfulness things do you do, or what's your favorite?
I feel like just taking a step back and breathing. And like the biggest thing that I've noticed too is that I don't like waking up into chaos. So waking up maybe an extra 5-10 minutes to just like whatever I feel like doing in those few minutes is just me time for a minute, and then go get the kids up and be ready. And I feel like that just helps me have a little bit better peace of mind, I guess, before I start the day. I'm still navigating. I'm still learning as I go of what I like and what I don't like. Like originally we always would wake up at like 7:30, and I just felt that was too pressured. So we woke up, I changed the time frames. And that's the thing that's important to kind of know, is that we're not perfect. No one's perfect by any means. You're never going to master it right away or
Yeah,
at all. So just try to play with it and figure out what makes sense to you as the parent, the mom, whichever, to really step in and be as graceful to yourself as much as possible.
exactly. I mean, for both of us, and it's from the stories that we're telling, I can hear that out as well. We're like, it's always a work in progress. We're never ever there. Oh yeah, we've mastered self-care or well-being or time management. There's
Mhm.
always something where we're like, oh yeah, we could tweak this. And depending on the time of our like parenthood journey as well, or our entrepreneurial journey, there's always something
Yes.
that we can tweak, right?
Yes. Well, thank you, Nadine, for coming on the show today. For everybody listening, Nadine will be coming back next month. We haven't picked a topic yet, but we have like career transitioning and motherhood, empowering moms in a workplace. We have so many ideas. So if you want to leave a comment on what you would like us to talk about, please leave that comment. I want to say thank you to everyone who's tuning into the show. Thank you to everyone at the chat room, the great comments that came in today. A big thank you to the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network. Next week, we'll be welcoming Ashley, who also is a member of Creative Dynamics, but also owns her own business. And we'll be digging in deep on her business entrepreneurial life and some resiliency that she has overcome over her life. I'm really excited to dig in with Ashley. So until next week, remember your journey is unique and your worth is unquestionable.